Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
We have been given a gift by God today to usher in a new dynasty.
Now you get RFK Jr.
Don't you want a president who's going to make America healthy again?
You get Tulsi Gabbard.
Putting our country in a continual state of war.
You get Elon Musk and you get J.D. Vance.
A hell of a way to start the next 4 years.
The right-wing Avengers.
We have an army of digital soldiers.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength.
Shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one.
The rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
The golden age of America has most definitely begun.
Begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
They're getting the dirt bags off these trees.
There's one guy who can fix this shit, and it's Donald Trump.
What's the storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
It's my own desire. It's my own remorse. Help me to decide. Help me make the most of freedom and for pleasure. Nothing ever lasts forever. Everybody wants to rule. There's a room where the light don't find
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh, and welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose. That was Paul McMahon Acoustic on YouTube, guys. You can find him. Everybody wants to rule the world. Paul Mahan, sorry, not McMahon, Mahan, and that's Paulmahon. Paul Mahan, acoustic cover of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. And another song that we used to have as our intro here at the Daily Dose, but we can't play it due to copyright restrictions. But that one is acoustic. It's a cover. You can absolutely play it. And we help to sponsor all of these great musicians around the world that are just trying to make it out there. And I recommend going and subscribing over to the Paul Mahan Acoustic on YouTube. No affiliation with me whatsoever. I just found the song today, and I loved it. And we're playing it because you know what? At the end of the day, everybody wants to rule the world. We're at least in the deep state capacity. Tonight's episode, 10 Days, Darkness, and AI Wars. Now, we're going to get into the 10 Days of Darkness, but we have to kind of look what's happening right now, what's unraveling. I've been saying that since the beginning of the Trump administration in 2025, we've been watching trickle-down disclosure. We're watching drip, drip, flood in D-class, right? Trickle-down disclosure talking about some weird shit that we weren't supposed to know was going on, but was really going on. Break it to you. Humanity is far much more advanced in technology than you could ever imagine. And I know this for a freaking fact. Don't ask. I'll tell you. If you join the live chat tonight, and maybe I'll let you guys know. So we have a live Q&A after tonight's show. If you want to join in on the live Q&A, you got to be one of our premium subscribers, whether on X, Locals, Substack, or our private social network, which is socialredpill.com. If you're subscribed over there, the links will be posted on those boards in the subscription areas, so you can join in on that live Q&A tonight. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about some things that I can't talk about here, but are really bothering me because I want to talk about them. But let me just tell you that as humanity, we are far much more advanced in technology than you could ever imagine. And what the Trump administration is doing, at least from my perspective, is they are doing trickle-down disclosure on this. It's slow at first, but it's going to start coming into play very, very fast. So the other part of it, 10 Days Darkness and then AI Wars. And it's not just AI I'm talking about. I'm talking about a lot of different stuff. But Tammy's going to join me here in a little bit. We're going to discuss a lot of that, as well as some health things, because it is Maha Thursday. But first, let's get into what we're watching here. So Dan Scavino posting a video of Devin Nunes yesterday. And I just love it when he posts these things and they happen to correlate directly in context with a timestamp. And he goes the GOAT, the greatest of all time, and Devin Nunes, basically back in, I believe this is 2017, talking from the Gang of Eight perspective, because he was a member of the Gang of Eight, talking about declassified leaks, which he knew what they were, but he couldn't say them forthright. The timestamp, 9:37 p.m. What does this say? This is 9:37, March 10th, 2018. Glimpse. You cannot possibly imagine the size of this. And this is what I've been trying to tell you. FISA is simply the foundation. It's all layers on top, backwards and forward, that this extends far beyond what we completely understand and know right now. Trust the plan. Trust there are more good than bad. The world is helping. We are not alone. We are all connected in this fight. Patriots unite. We are winning big. Watch the speech. God bless. So tomorrow, Donald Trump is headed to Alaska, Anchorage, Alaska, for the Russia summit. Oh, it's going to get interesting. So what him and Putin going to talk about? Primarily Ukraine, but I highly doubt that Ukraine is going to be much of a discussion. I know Trump lashed out at Putin today because of the attacks they made on Zelensky. One last blunder before the negotiations begin. But what we are going to see most likely is some type of Arctic trade deal negotiated. Arctic trade, Arctic mining, a sharing of resources, a sharing of trade routes, as well as exploration of the Arctic together with Russia and the United States. I guarantee you that that's what's going to come about in the context of asset allocation and resource exchange with Putin. that is going to be one of the top priorities of Donald Trump, is building that economic and kind of political alliance with Russia, because, well, that is the key to everything when it comes to China's homogeny in the global community over technology, AI, and their acquisition of resources. So really important to remember right there. Tomorrow, really important day. Excited to see what happens. We'll talk a little bit about just a few different things on that specifically when it comes up. But I wanted to point this out, going back to the Q boards. 4621, and if you've never seen this post before, it was the only post ever on August 17th. And you got to remember, the 17th. August 17th. 4621. Placeholder. Indictment tracking. Non-civilian set 1. Kevin Kleinsmith, KC 11-3. Now, this means a lot of different things. But this is the transitional point, 11-3, right? Of Q kind of giving the hint in organization that these indictments mark the turn of the tides. Now, Kevin Kleinsmith is not the most well-known person out there, and it's not the person that I think he's meant for this. Remember, disinformation is necessary. But I think that the date that this was posted is completely relevant. I think that we could possibly hear words of indictments as early as this weekend, correlating directly to August 17th. I don't know. I'm guessing. But to me, I think that everything is ramping up towards this. And I think that it's a good assessment that we can potentially see that. MJ Truth on X. To me, this is one hell of a Q proof. Let's look at it. This is pretty freaking amazing. Anons. DNI Gabbard just released classified docs detailing Admiral Mike Rogers of the NSA fighting back against the intelligence scheme to frame Donald Trump. If you don't know about Admiral Mike Rogers, you better ask somebody or allow me to blow your mind. Admiral Mike Rogers, 4-star Navy admiral, served as director of the National Security Agency, commander of U.S. Cybercom, and chief of the Central Security Service from 2014 to 2018. He was the 17th NSA director. Let's talk Q. In the context of Q drops, Rogers is depicted as a key patriot or white hat figure, a heroic insider who opposed illegal surveillance and corruption within the U.S. government and intelligence community. Q alluded to Rogers having uncovered unauthorized spying activities, particularly related to the FISA, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, abuses targeting Donald Trump and his campaign. He conducted an internal audit at the NSA that revealed improper queries and surveillance by figures like former CIA Director John Brennan, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, and others in the Obama administration. Rogers refused to participate in the spying scheme against Trump, instead chose to expose it. Now, a little backdrop, and I don't know if he gets into this. I haven't read this fully. Mike Rogers was really good friends with a 4-star general by the name of General Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn was actually the one that got him in over at the National Security Agency and helped him get a job. Admiral Rogers was a cryptographer. That's why he led Cyber Command. He wasn't, in context, an intelligence, a spook, or human. He dealt primarily with SIGINT. So him to lead the National Security Agency, well, it just wasn't necessarily his forte. But General Flynn got him into that position, got him as that last star, and got him into that position, which is really, really important because that's how all of this unfolds later on from 2015 into 2016. So the meeting that changed everything. Meeting with Trump, Q alludes that Rogers' unauthorized visit to the Trump Tower in November 2016, shortly after Trump's election, where he reportedly briefed Trump on the surveillance without informing President Obama or other superiors. Following this meeting is presented as a pivotal act that alerted Trump to the deep state plot, which when Donald Trump began publicly accusing Obama of wiretapping him. Q drops suggest this led to recommendations that Roger be fired, but he remained in his role. Departure in cooperation, his retirement in 2018 is highlighted as no coincidence, implying it was timed with ongoing investigations into FISA abuses. Q drops provided details that Rogers cooperated with the plan, providing evidence or testimony that aided efforts against adversaries like Hillary Clinton and the DNC and foreign entities. The drop alludes to Rogers as the central hero in the shadow war against a global cabal who helped prevent a coup or rigged election by exposing surveillance that could have been used to blackmail or undermine Trump, which now we know he did. In summary, the Tulsi Gabbard just declassified is a future proves the past in relation to Q drops. You want to know the kind of help President had getting elected in 2016 when she was supposed to win? This is the big part of that answer. President Trump had help from the good guys in the intelligence community and the military. And he goes through this with all of this. And the document that he's talking about is the 2016 emails exposing the intel chief's hesitation on Russian election hack claims. The NSA demanded full evidence before signing off. This is the one where James Clapper comes out and says, this is just the way it goes. Like, just jump on board with us, Mike. There's no reason to delay in this. You don't need to see all the evidence. And Rogers pushed back heavily. In other contexts, what we're seeing here is future proves the past. And with that understanding that future proves the past, we have to start looking much, much deeper into everything that's going on, because when we start to look at the relevance of the Q posts and the Q boards, and we start seeing that there's cross-correlation directly to them in current events that are happening, as in the future is proving the past, then we have to ask the questions about things like 10 Days of Darkness. We have to ask questions about what happens when the deep state fights back, because they haven't even begun the fight yet, guys. And I'm just going to tell you that right now. So Trump today being asked a question about Clapper in the emails. Listen to this.
Tulsi Gabbard declassified more documents last night related to the Russiagate hoax.
She's doing a great job, by the way. That was another fake story. I'm very happy with the job she's doing. That's right. They declassified some terrible documents talking about Democrats and what they did. Yeah. Radical left lunatics.
It showed that then DNI James Clapper sent out emails to IC officials saying that it would be a team sport to push then the debunked 2017 ICA report, and that it might need them to compromise on their normal modalities. What's your reaction to the latest declassification? And in your view, sir, what does real accountability look like for the players involved?
It's incredible what we're finding. Absolute proof of guilt. And we'll see what happens. But Clapper and Comey and that whole group of criminals, they're criminals, and they made it very tough. You know, they did the fake Russia witch hunt that lasted for 2 years, and I got totally exonerated. There was no doubt about it. They should have done it in 1 day, not 2 years, but it was a whole scheme to try and demean Trump so that I couldn't win an election. And that is a criminal group of people. They're sick people, and they're criminals, and they should be taken care of.
And they should be taken care of. Is there any proof or evidence that these guys are being taken care of? Well, interesting enough is we're getting indications of that right now. So let me pull this one up, and let's listen to John Solomon real quick on the Megyn Kelly show and hear what he has to say about exactly that. Are they being taken care of, John? I wonder.
Listen, the way you opened your show, there's no better description of what the conspiracy is. It's a conspiracy to protect potential Democrats from potential criminal prosecution, and then to violate the civil liberties and privacy and reputations of innocent Republicans to create an alternate story to protect political interest, meaning what's going to happen in the election. That's what it is. It's not more complicated than that. I know people say, oh, a conspiracy case is going to be complicated. No, it's really not. We protected Democrats. And the cycle is Hillary has two problems. Email, now corruption. We can prove that was active at the time. Hunter Biden's got corruption in taxes. And by the way, the first evidence of that comes in March through May of 2016. And then 2019, it's Hunter Biden a lot more. And so we impeached the president, and we have the government actually creating stories that I think we will prove were false. And then in 21, they find Joe Biden's classified documents at UPenn office in Washington and his garage, and they got to make Donald Trump look like he's the classified guy first before they can let the cat out of the bag that Joe Biden has the same problem. It's a wash, rinse, and repeat cycle. And in the course of that, two potential crimes are occurring. Obstruction of legitimate investigations. Those are overt acts of a conspiracy. And then the violation of innocent people's civil liberties to create a political ruse. That is where I believe the grand conspiracy case is headed. I believe that there are multiple grand juries that have begun work around this country in multiple jurisdictions outside of Washington where evidence is now being gathered.
You do? You
I do.
Can report that, or you have reason to believe that?
Nope, I have confirmed witnesses and who've had contact with the grand jury. So there are grand jurors in multiple locations. Some of those are in Virginia. I believe one is going to begin based on early discussions in Pennsylvania. There may be one in New York. And so the activity has begun. And the question now is, and those are probably not going to be the indicting locations. I think the more likely thing is you use multiple grand juries just to make it easy to gather lots of information quickly. That's the way strike forces work. And then you keep working from there. But there are multiple locations where pieces of this are being looked at, and maybe the grand jurors don't even know it's a grand conspiracy, just looking at some of the overt acts in one of these chapters of this sad story. But that is going on. And I think it's going to be a process, right? It's going to be a 6-month process. I don't know the reason yet. I wish I knew. I don't know the reason. I mean, there's lots of, it could be related to the 2020 election.
Yeah, that's where my mind went.
Yeah. So we don't know yet. I just know that certain witnesses have been contacted about acceptance of grand jury subpoenas, and they're in different locations. So the process is beginning, but it's a long process. And, we won't know a lot about if the Justice Department does the right thing. Unlike the Obama and Biden Justice Departments that leaked anything, the grand jury process will be unbelievably secret and will be masked from it, because that's the way the process is supposed to work. In the meantime, we have an opportunity through the Freedom of Information Act and through our perches as reporters to go out and try to get the story for the American people so they can understand why this is going on. The Democrats who didn't care about going after a president when it was the Republican are going to start crying, this is payback, this is retribution. We need Americans to understand it's not payback and retribution. There are legitimate legal questions here.
John Solomon right there confirming that not just one grand jury is being convened in Florida, which we know, multiple grand juries. And Megyn Kelly asks, why Pennsylvania? Do you know why grand juries occur in various different state jurisdictions? Because that's where the crimes were committed. Now, John Solomon just came out and said that the strike force is out there convening grand juries in multiple jurisdictions, Virginia, New York, Pennsylvania, and Florida that we know of. Why New York? Why Virginia? Well, Virginia, a lot of these crimes took place in Virginia. New York, what crimes took place in New York? Does this have to do with the Albany field office? Does this have to do with SDNY? Does this happen to do with Epstein? I wonder. Pennsylvania, the 2020 election, we know that a big part of the steal in the 2020 election dealt primarily with Pennsylvania. I bet you're going to hear that other grand juries are forming. Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin. The grand conspiracy will come together and fit together very soon. At the same time, this is where it just gets even better, guys. You have to. I'm so excited about this because you have to watch this and see and go, holy shit! It's all three movies playing at the same time, simultaneously, all coming together. August 28th, we start Jeff Sessions going out there and testifying in front of Congress about Jeffrey Epstein, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, all of them indicted or subpoenaed to Congress about this. We have grand juries occurring in multiple different state locations about the Russia coup, but then we know that it's directly connected with the 2020 election, which I've laid out. Open Society Foundations, 2018, Lord Malik Brown, talking about Smartmatic, talking about the connections to Open Society Foundations, Open Societies behind FISA-Gate coup. We have Leonard Bernardo and the planning coordination on that with Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC, and then that DNC going into the Obama administration, starting with Loretta Lynch, starting next with James Comey, then going to Barack Obama, all within a 1.5 week span. And then the actual official meetings that take place after the Clinton email investigation is dropped on July 7th. And then that moves into 2018 when they can't stop Donald Trump. And what do? They go out there and rig the elections in 2018 midterms. George Soros goes out there, funds Secretary of States. He funds attorney generals. Why? Because they knew exactly what was going to happen next, which was COVID-19, allowing for mail-in ballots, and that they're going to need the Secretary of States and the attorney generals to change the rules unconstitutionally, but they would need the Secretary of States to change the rule and the attorney generals to overrule the Congress of the state to say that it was legally viable so that they could steal the election in 2020. It's all coming together. And then we're watching the end of the Democrat Party. The end of the Democrat
President
Party.
Trump is directing the Justice Department to investigate ActBlue. This is a Democratic donation platform, and the focus as the allegations about illegal straw donors and foreign contributions. Mark Meredith is live in Washington with more. This has been brewing for a while, Mark. What do we need to know?
Dana, for years, you're right about this, but this is a big development. The White House is directing the Attorney General to investigate the Democratic Party's top fundraising platform. It's called ActBlue, and the president says he wants to know if foreign money is being donated to the group and then utilized to sway elections. Democrats are calling this probe a dangerous abuse of power.
President Trump is directing the Justice Department.
Isn't that interesting? You know, I wonder who is associated with this, because when we start to look at the deep state infrastructure, when we start to look at everything that's happened, you know, when we start to look at ActBlue, we start to think about Arabella Associates, the Koch brothers. We start to look at other deep state think tanks, NGOs that are associated with dark money. Guys, you are witnessing the systematic destruction of the old guard. You go to the Durham report. You remember the Durham report laid out the NGO, the organization, the think tank, all of the various different organizations that were involved in this? Parts of that, by the way, are directly related to defense contractors, intelligence contractors. Now you understand why Palantir gets this contract, which replaces 30 different defense contractors. Remember, I'm not afraid of the one animal I can control versus the 30 that want to kill me. With ActBlue under investigation, this is going to lead to the dark money. Remember, USAID, they shut that down. They got into the treasury systems. They find out where all these payments are going. They followed the money. Now going into the ActBlue on official investigations, they're going to follow that USAID money all the way out to foreign countries, to NGOs, to various different institutions, and flowing back into shell organizations that were spoofing credit card numbers and directing it directly to ActBlue. You are watching the end of the DNC of the Democrat Party, people. After the midterms is the end of these guys. And by the way, how much have you heard about fundraising for the Democrats lately? Very little. Very, very, very little. There's a reason why. Because they're not bringing in much money these days. So then, remember Florida? We were talking about Florida last week. And I was talking about Emerald Robinson and her talking about this whole grand conspiracy that just happened from 2020 to 2024. And how Patrick Byrne helped run a 30-man team that actually saved this election in 2024. Still unknown how he did that specifically. But just last week, the DOJ put a bounty, a $10 million bounty, on the capture and whereabouts of President Maduro of Venezuela. We are at war with Venezuela. All of the gangs and various different cartel organizations in Venezuela are labeled as terrorist organizations here in the United States of America. Today, the United States has ordered the deployment of U.S. air and naval forces in the Southern Caribbean against drug groups. Now, what happens when you declare these drug groups terrorist organizations? You no longer just go out there and indict them and board them. They fire back, you fire back at them. This is a declaration of war. This is basically a proxy war against Venezuela, who has no methodology to fight back against us. Understand that, because at the same time, one of the former executives of Smartmatic is in U.S. custody in Florida over bribery charges. And he's singing like a bird because he was directly associated with everything that happened from 2018, 2016, and 2020. Now, if you're the deep state and you know this is going to happen, actually, let me take care of this real quick. Joey's reality. Let's go, Josh. It's about time we get real. We've been prepared for this moment. The Great Awakening, $5 on Rumble. Thank you so much, Joey. I appreciate that, buddy. And then I think it was Mega Nuke there, just donated one subscription. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for all the support out there on Rumble and everywhere else. D-Live, Pilled. You guys are awesome. Now, knowing what's coming, I've talked about this for years. I call it the Firestorm event. I've laid this out multiple different times. We are in the midst of a color revolution that just got thwarted through a counterinsurgency, right? COINTELPRO, counterinsurgency. What we have witnessed over the last decade was a counterinsurgency against a belligerent occupation of the United States of America. Now, the tides have shifted. We saw that symbolically with Donald Trump raising the flags on the White House 3 days after he marched the military through Washington, D.C. on the 250th anniversary of the Army's birthday. But has the deep state played their cards yet? I'm telling you, no, they have not. Because you have to understand who we are dealing with. You remember when I discussed who the global cabal and the deep state is? Like, the other day, I was saying, hey, when I say CIA, I'm not talking about bad. I'm not, like, when we look at the CIA is not a bad entity. It's not the bad guys. People can get in control of that entity and they can exploit it and they can corrupt it. Absolutely. But the real factions that you need to look at when we say CIA or NSA or the government or whatever we're talking about is the organizations that operate under them. This is non-government organizations, NGOs. This is think tanks, Club of Rome, Trilateral Commission, Council of Foreign Relations. This is various different contractors like the Open Society Foundations, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations. This is where all the levels of corruption actually overlay and interplay. This is where the formulation of the deep state actually begins because it's through those organizations that influence the political infrastructure upward. And then the funding funnels back down inward. And so what you have is this secret government organization operated through all these various NGOs and think tanks that actually rule your government by having compromise over your politicians, by having influence over your politicians, by paying them off, giving them great jobs when they get out of Congress. And what they do is they keep the money flowing into them. And they've been shaping the world towards their own guise for the last 60 years, towards a one world government, a new world order. Now, the looks of that one world government, that new world order, is a commie-fascist technocratic state controlled by an oligarchical institution, which we can call think tanks and NGOs. That's what they wanted to create. That's what they were implementing. They knew about all of this from the get-go in the context of technological progression and where humanity was going to be at this time. And they were building the infrastructure out for their system to be implemented in and around this time frame. So when we start talking about who Trump's fighting, he's fighting this massive organization of corruption, this large global criminal organization. And as much as we want to think that much of what we are watching is a movie, I do believe that Trump is 5 steps ahead of them, that he is playing 5D chess and he is blowing them away at the game board. We can probably thank AI for a lot of that. But on the other side of the house, is these people have massive influence, they have massive amounts of money, they have massive amounts of resources, and they have technology that blows your mind. We've seen influences of this technology. If you go back to the Ren Power Company in Spain, that Portugal, Spain, and France lost a lot of power a few weeks ago, and it was down for over 24 hours. 2022, part of that company was ran by the CCP. We know they have massive influence in there, and there's portions of the CCP that are controlled by the deep state. We know of bioweapon laboratories that were running through Ukraine and other third world countries because they're autonomous organizations that exist off the books, that governments can go out there or these organizations can go out there and do research that really is not going to spark human rights concerns. We know that they had special weapons programs, that they had nuclear-capable submarines that could fire ballistic missiles. We know that they were developing nuclear and other types of missile technology in Ukraine and other places. What I'm trying to tell you is that if they were doing all that, then they were also developing artificial intelligence. And if they were developing artificial intelligence, then you got to think that they were probably also developing quantum computing. If they're developing quantum computing and they're trying to reverse engineer all of this exotic technology that was sitting in black projects, and that was the whole point of Hillary Clinton's private email server to secretly send the SAP programs that Jake Sullivan gave her access to sell those SAP programs to China. And Barack Obama opened up the channels for this in 2008 with educational exchange programs. Then that means that they've had over 15 years to develop upon this technology of highly advanced exotic technology that we probably didn't create. With that being said, can we expect the deep state to fight back? And my answer to you is yes. I'll talk a little bit more about this tonight in my Q&A. It's a private Q&A. I'll talk a little bit more about this tonight, about what I know about this specifically. But I want you to understand there's a reason why this is called 10 Days of Darkness tonight. Now, my good buddy, Game Tech, who was on with me Monday, posted this earlier today on X. Our U.S. Army Fort Sill, reminder, Fort Sill will conduct a Black Start power outage exercise Wednesday, September 10th. Notice the date. 2025. Please see below for some safety tips for power outages and stay tuned for more tips. I go on to say, Q said 10 days, shutdown, darkness. We are seeing much more of this type of preparation. Why? Because they never thought she would lose, and they will never give up power without a fight. They will scorch this earth before they ever relinquish full control. Coordinate this with recent deployments of the National Guard in D.C., potentially other cities in the coming weeks, probably the same cities that the grand juries are convening in. Something big is about to happen. Trump assures us in 6 months, the economy will boom. Why 6 months? Because that is how long it'll take to begin the indictments and grand jury proceedings. The first arrest is incoming. When it happens, see something, say something. Now, there's other posts that pertain to 10 Days Darkness. Post 97. This is from November 5th, 2017. Game theory defined. Why is this relevant? Moves and counter moves. Who is the enemy? False flags. Shooter identification, shooter history, shooter background, shooter family, MS-13. Define hostage, define leverage, MS-13, shooter, family, hostage, force, narrative, race, background. Why is this relevant? Flynn. What is Flynn's background? Movement warfare. What was his rank? Why was he involved in intel ops? What access or special privilege? Why is this relevant? Setup. Who wins? Who becomes exposed? Who knows where the bodies are buried? Who has access? What is military intelligence? Who was part of military intelligence during Barack Obama? Who was fired during Barack Obama's term? This is still talking about Flynn. Then it says here, paint the picture. Disinformation exists and is necessary. 10 days, darkness, war, good versus evil. Roadmap of big picture is here. Review post happenings, clarified. Crumbs not only for poll, the silent ones, others monitoring, friends and enemies. Instructions, Snow White, Godfather 3. Snow White, by the way, Snow White we thought was pertaining to satellite surveillance systems, but in the context of what these Q posts are talking about, it's allegorical. The Sleeping Princess, the Seven Dwarfs. What are we talking about there? We're talking about the Obama administration. We're talking about Hillary Clinton. Godfather 3, we're talking about George Soros and the connections to the Rothschilds in the Vatican. What they're talking about here, 10 Days Darkness, War, Good versus Evil. This is the final countdown. We're coming to that. The first arrest is going to mark and signify this. What we are potentially going to see is something that we've talked about even since the days of COVID. Potential martial law, potential National Guard deployed, riot control. They're going to deploy all forces. They're going to probably activate their sleeper cells. This is why we have the quick reaction forces being developed within the National Guard communities right now. We could potentially see power outages. Who knows? Grid attacks, cyber attacks, all of these types of things. The one thing I do know is that Trump has a plan. Scavino's post today. Trust the plan. They know what's going on. Now, before I bring Tammy in, I gotta say, what's up to the Smartin 1965. Thanks, Josh, for all you do. I look forward to your podcast every evening on Rumble. $10 Rumble rant. Thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate you. You're awesome. Now, put that aside for a second. Shit's happening. We know it. We've been prepared for this moment for a very, very long time. It's like, you're putting on the war, right? Throwing the guns in the back. This is what we've been waiting for, guys. We knew this day would come. We knew that it was going to be quick and it was going to be painful to the deep state. They were going to fight back. Just how, we didn't know. Now we're getting more of a picture. Donald Trump's moves, 20,000 troops on the southern border, instantly deployable in hours anywhere in the United States of America. The activation of the National Guard in Washington, D.C., first and primarily. Secondary, is he's going to start deploying them probably to blue states and blue cities. Why Washington, D.C. first and foremost? Because right now you have something going on throughout our entire government known as Eagle Horizon 2025, which is done every year, but specifically it's being promoted by the Trump administration. It's about continuity of government. It's about preserving and protecting the sanctitude of our government. And this is why the National Guard is being deployed specifically in Washington, D.C. first. Begin continuity of government practices and assurances to know that if something does happen, that things still flow securely, surely, and efficiently. I think that what we are potentially going to see is rising up of various different sleeper cell organizations, false flag operations, potentially even riots in the street. Again, the city's trying to get burned, but I think we're going to have an immediate National Guard response. Think about what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now with federal agents, FBI agents on the beat, on patrol, walking down the street, and they are going out and arresting criminals. They captured more criminals in the last week and a half in Washington, D.C. that have federal warrants out for their arrest than they have in the last 5 years combined, just by going out and walking the streets. And they're going to continue to do that. And the next thing you know, they're going to be doing that in every blue state, every blue city in the United States of America. Why? Because this is crackdown time. This is trying to get all of those bad actors out of the way prior to the shitstorm coming that is going to affect all of our lives for a very short period of time. Now, on the other side of the house, I've talked about this for a long time. We have to understand that the Trump administration is doing drip, drip, flood declassification. It's happening. Drip, drip, flood declassification. What you've seen so far is damning to the deep state, to Obama, to Clapper, to Brennan, to Clinton. It's not even the tip of the iceberg, people. It's just begun. Wait till the flood comes. It is going to be epic. But that's when they begin to fight back because they know what they have. The other part of the Trump administration that they've been doing is something I call trickle-down disclosure. This is NASA Administrator Sean Duffy, Trump's appointee. Listen to what he says here. Because this is coming, and it's coming very fast, and I'm going to bring Tammy in here in a minute to talk about this with me.
Tulsi Gabbard this week talked about the fact that aliens could be real and she might want to declassify a few things. Now, all I can tell you is what I know, Duffy. We know the drones are not from New Jersey because they've been using their blinkers. Now what?
Well, first off, Jimmy, saw the drones. The drones are real, right? I don't think we had the accoutrements in position to actually see what that was. But okay. But tell you what, I just want to be really clear. I haven't had the alien briefing yet, but I've asked for it. Okay. So I can't comment on it.
I haven't had the alien briefing yet, but I've asked for it. And he wasn't joking there. Because we've seen just Aero director last week talking with Neil deGrasse Tyson on his podcast about actual sightings by law enforcement officials that are documented where there's multiple sightings across the country of the same damn thing. You are getting trickle-down disclosure from the Trump administration, people. It is happening right now in real time. There's a reason for it. The reason for it is that this world is about to change technologically very, very, very fast. The question is how is that change going to affect all of us? What's up, Tammy? How we doing?
Oh my goodness, Josh. Just the stuff you're talking about, I don't even know about that stuff because my head is in health and so much is happening in health with AI and biotech that I don't even have time. I'm glad you're covering that stuff because I'm not even following that stuff. I don't even know what's going on in the news because all I'm focused on here is the AI race and how that's going to impact us, like our bodies, Josh. This is going to impact every body. Like, it is insane, the advancements they're making. Been talking a lot about data centers, and that's what I was telling you about. I want to talk about tonight.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get into that. But
awesome.
What I want everybody to see is that what you're talking about in the context of artificial intelligence being developed up and what they were doing with health. I sent you a few different podcasts and we've been sharing back and forth. We know what they're doing. We understand where they're headed with this. Is that there's two different agendas still on the technological side that are being organized. If you go back to 2014, Klaus Schwab's book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, he talks about this specifically of what was coming. Now, the reason why we are seeing the trickle-down disclosure from the Trump administration, and they're talking about aliens and exotic technology, is because that exotic technology was leaked in 2014, 2015 by Hillary Clinton through SAP and Orcon emails that Jake Sullivan gave her access to China. China then brought it in, reverse engineered the technology. This deals with the New Jersey drones. But here's the problem, is that technology is now out in the commercial world. You're not going to stop it from being developed. So they have to start bringing this out into the public and laying the foundation that, hey, this is happening. And see, that's what Klaus Schwab was talking about. He knew that was all going on, but they were building it for themselves. Now, you came up with a very interesting theory about AI and things that we were seeing, C-15 cities and all of this. And I said, holy shit, you might be onto something.
Yeah. So what I've been putting the pieces together here is, the whole climate cult has never made sense to me, Josh. Like, why do we need to, change our light bulbs? And these guys are flying around on jets and they're building massive coastal property homes and they are not concerned about the planet. They're not concerned about all that stuff. Clearly, their actions would show different if they were actually concerned about the planet. No, that was just the mechanism to get people to, get fired up. That was the gas on the angry mob. We got to save the planet for our children. We've got to, don't you care about the children? All this kind of stuff. In reality, Josh, this is what I think. I think that they are wringing out every single little bit of human energy consumption from us, i.e. LED light bulbs. You can't have, animal restrictions. I mean, the animal restrictions here in Colorado are getting stricter and stricter all the time when it comes to livestock. And I think in every state, they're concerned about how often we're watering. They're concerned about how much energy we're consuming all the time, right? Don't water on this day. Don't do this. Well, if you look at AI, Josh, these data centers are going to require, like we've discussed on here at length, an intense amount of energy, right? They're going to require a lot of energy. And the only thing weighing AI down right now and the advancement of AGI is energy. Okay, so we know that that's the variable for that. So I think this entire movement of climate cult is just a way to reroute energy to AI. And there are some other signs too, which I sent to you. Okay, so we have all these coastal fires, right? Look at what happened Yes.
You just had one in Lahaina, again in Maui.
Yep. So we keep having these kind of coastal, beautiful area places. Well, guess what? Google built a data center in Finland, and it is cooled by the Baltic Sea. And also, Microsoft built an underground or an underwater data center so they could actually trial submerging it. This was years ago, and it wasn't that successful. But this other data center that's being cooled by the Baltic Sea is very successful. And so when you see all this video of none of this stuff being built back, I'm wondering if these coastal fires are not a way to clear the real estate for data centers, because we now know this is the way they're going to cool them, is through water. We see Bill Gates investing in water because he knows this is going to be an intense resource. He's trying to figure out a way, and has figured out a way apparently, where we can drink our own toilet water.
Ooh, yummy.
Yeah. And then the final thing here too, which I think is another puzzle piece, is the fact that he wants to dim the sun. Why does he want to dim the sun? Oh, it's because we need to cool the planet. Why do we need to cool the planet at this point? We don't have any real scientific evidence that we need to cool the planet, unless you're building massive data centers and basically Skynet around the planet, and you need energy and temperature control to be able to house these massive data centers. Canada is a big place of interest for building data centers. Why? Temperature.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to kind of the context that I was just talking about. Now, I'm going to get a little crazy. I'm going to throw some shit out there for some people. I've been researching these topics for the longest time. And once the AI component came into things, other things began to start making a lot more sense. Okay. And this is where we kind of get future proofs the past, is that all of these things that we discussed in the past, like they didn't really make sense until the news unlocked them in the future, and you start to see everything come together. Now, I like what you're saying about the coastal fires, because I think you're right, is that real estate is being cleared for something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily know if it's cooling, but it could be hydroelectric plants. Wave generation hydroelectric plants that are going to be implemented there. It could be new nuclear reactors that fare better right next to the ocean, because now you have that rampant cooling and you have that water supply, right? And we know that they're jumping up on the nuclear reactors right now and building them out. It's going to be primarily
because they need energy. All of a sudden, nuclear's fine, right? All of a sudden, that's fine because they are so desperate for energy source.
That's right. So the kind of the Maui fires and all these things, I think in the C-15 cities, we had Acapulco, right?
Yes.
All of this could be directly related to AI. And I think that you're spot on right to assume that. And I think that what we're actually looking at is not only cooling, but for nuclear energy, is you're putting those nuclear power plants directly. That's why eminent domain has been enforced in a lot of these places. And they could build hydroelectric reactors, or they could build nuclear reactors in these areas, and then even data centers directly connected to them. And maybe this is even a fail-safe against AI. And the reason I say that is you build them on coastal territories like that, and let's say the AI goes nuts and you can't control it. Well, it's electric. It's not protected. Yet you dump it. You produce a tidal wave that knocks it out there, because you still got a nuke. You just dump it in the ocean and it's going to wipe that whole data center out. So there's a lot of viability for this. But then the dimming of the sun, and that one doesn't make much sense. And you're absolutely right on this. Now, when I originally heard this, I said, well, we're being terraformed. If we start to look at all of the ESG components, the control of humanity, the slave matrix that was being set up, the control grids, the depopulation agenda, the infertilization that is being brought about by food and medicine and water and air, you start to see that humanity is being slowly eradicated. At the same time, the planet is being terraformed into some type of new ecosystem. Now, this is what sparked it. And I said, oh, shit. Because you are absolutely spot on right about the cooling of AI. This is one of the big reasons why China is on the moon right now, mining helium-3.
Right.
Because helium-3 exists at very, very cold, rampant temperatures, very much like nitrogen. And you can go out there and keep things really, really cold for it. Now, quantum computers, they need, I think it's like 0.43 degrees Kelvin in order to operate. So they're almost at absolute zero, but 0.43 degrees is like nothing. And to get down that cold, you need immense amounts of energy to do something like that. So I started thinking about this, and I said, well, let's put this together. Where did John Kerry and a lot of other diplomats back in like 2018 go visit? And why did they go visit there?
Antarctica.
Why did they go to visit there? Because you know what? If there was one place on this planet I was going to build out a super artificial intelligence quantum computing infrastructure, be it Antarctica.
Because it's cold.
Well, because it's cold, but then you have...
Nobody sees it.
You have the ice melts. You can use the ice directly for direct cooling. And I said that if there was ever an alien civilization that was existing on this planet, like, let's go back to the Book of Enoch, the Watchers, right? Let's just say that they're very limited in their numbers, so they can't make themselves public and everything like this, but they control things behind the scenes and they pull the strings. And let's just say that they exist somewhere on this planet, but it has to be much, much colder because that's the environment that they live in. Something that's a little less warmer or a little less cooler, right?
Yeah.
And Antarctica would be that perfect place because number one is they could run quantum computers, artificial intelligence, absolutely in Antarctica. They could utilize rectennas. What is a rectenna? A rectenna is a type of antenna that traps electromagnetic energy that is sent from space that is in the form of power. So the X-37B sends directed energy down to a rectenna. The rectenna can direct that energy or capture it in its frequency and then transition it directly into electrical energy. Well, guess what? We have fields of rectennas existing in Antarctica. Go figure. Now, it's interesting because when you start thinking about a rectenna and the various different shapes and designs that you'd want for something like a rectenna, well, understand that what we're talking about here is just kind of simple electromagnetic energy. But if we put energy in different forms, then we can begin to understand that we can take energy directly from space and beam it down to the planet. But a rectenna could be an 8-sided pyramid. And that pyramid could capture that energy and focus it. It's basically an inverted rectenna. You turn it around and you got the cone and the shape, you got the rectenna, but it's just an inverted rectenna. So my thoughts and theories are that number one is that there's a hidden hand of influence on this planet. I 100%.
You think it's non-human?
I do believe it's non-human. And you want to know what I think it is?
What?
AI.
Yeah.
It's an ancient AI that was discovered. We actually have indications. I've written about this a few different times. But I think that it was either reverse engineered technology. Tammy, think about this. You had the Roswell crash in 47. You had Alamogordo in 52, 48. You had another one in 52. They go out there, they recover these aircraft, these exotic aircraft. All of a sudden, we go from a vacuum tube transistor that's as big as my Zevia can, right, to a transistor on a chip.
That's tiny.
That's the size of my pen tip. That is a magnitude increase in technological progression that gave birth to the Silicon Valley. How did we make that leap? How did we go from this to that, right? And I thought, I've written about this, and I said, you know what? What if you were an alien civilization, an AI, advanced alien civilization? Firstly, you're not going to send your spaceships to a planet to colonize them, especially if you're ancient. If you're 1 million years old, hundreds of thousands of years more advanced than us, you're not going to send their whole armada to go wipe out a colony of ants. We don't send tanks in to go kill ants and wasps. No, we outsmart them. We are smarter than them. So what are you going to do? You're going to send one spaceship down to their planet, unoccupied. It's going to crash. They're going to be curious. They're going to go out there. They're going to begin taking it. They're going to look at it. They're going to reverse engineer it. But let's just say that the propulsion, the weapon systems, the navigation is far more advanced than anything you'd ever imagine. But the computing systems, that's about 50 years ahead of us. We can begin to reverse engineer this. We can begin to understand this. We can start developing the infrastructure right now to integrate it into our society. And that's exactly what happened. But it was a Trojan horse.
Oh my gosh, you're blowing my mind here. But yeah, I hate to bring up a whole nother topic, but did you see this podcast with this Roman Yampolowski on Rogan about AI and the possibility? I can't even believe I'm saying this, but the possibility that we are already living in a simulation?
So I've listened to various different fields of experts on the simulation theory. I don't disagree with them. But
would we know it? Would we know it? Because, I mean, look at how close we're getting now to emulating reality, right? We have this really weird blur between reality and virtual now, and it's only getting, more seamless, this merger between virtual and reality. Today, I covered on my show a virtual band, like an AI band that's got over 1 million downloads on Spotify. It doesn't even exist. It's completely AI generated bands, and they're getting downloads. So there's this merger now, and it just gets better and better. It's compounding all the time. That is really difficult to even tell what's an AI video. Pretty soon it's going to be impossible. And Eric Schmidt, 10 years ago at the WEF forum, he said, the cell phone's going to disappear. the internet will essentially disappear because it won't go away, but we'll be immersed in it. And so there won't be sitting down to a computer to get online, or there will be no what I call a portal of your phone where you go in, you sit down and you hold a device to enter the internet. We will be part of it. And interestingly enough, there's a new article out of Stanford from some neuroscientists that were talking about the fact that humans have frequency and that we emit electromagnetic frequency. Well, we know this, but the advancement is that we actually are a connected network. And so I've known this for a long time. This is not news to me. I feel it, right? I'm one of those people that just can feel that network. And so it's not new to me, but I think they're introducing the idea to humans that we will be connected because the synthetic world, the fake world, the virtual world, the invented world, it can't create anything. All it does is co-op and synthesize. And so what they're synthesizing in AI is what we already have in nature, but we just didn't know it, which is this neural network of connection. We have a neural network of connection with humans, and we also have a neural network of frequency connection to like the Schumann resonance, the Earth. Right. So it's this ball and this network of energy, humans and nature together. And what's happening with AI is they're severing that connection, Josh, and they're synthesizing it.
So a few different thoughts on this. Starting with, well, where was I going with this? You said a lot there.
I did. Sorry. The simulation is where I started.
Simulation, thank you. Starting with simulation theory. This is where I want people to start to think, is that we exist in what we understand to be a reality based on laws and principles and rules. From the subquantum to the quantum to the molecular to the macro to the cosmological, there are certain boundary conditions that exist in all of them. We understand that electromagnetism is one of the primary and strongest forces that exist within this system of rules that exist on all levels of that playing field. When we start to look at kind of atomic structures and molecular interactions and all these things, there is a dominance of laws and principles that play into that. Now, when we start to get into computing, how a transistor operates, and it's actually a transistor basically does what's called a flip-flop. It has one input and no input, and that one input or no input gives one of two different possible conclusions or digital binary conclusions, and then groups of them can form and, nor, and NAND, and all the different types of gating options to form digital logic. Here's the key, is one of the things that we discovered many years ago is that this isn't something that we created. This is inherent within nature. Mm-hmm. That when molecular structures come together, they're acting very, very similar in the electrical component integration of their own systems. That they form binary logic within their neural constructed networks, within organic molecules, within various different inorganic molecules. There are logical pathways that are created on the atomic scale that allow for the transference of information back and forth. So when a highway. So when we say simulation, we have to truly define what that means. And I say that because our computer systems that we are building today, that we're building constructs and virtual simulations in, are nothing more than the same matter and energy that I just discussed, based on the same the same logic that is constructed in the universe. In other words, we're nothing. The simulations that we're creating today are rudimentary and very elementary universes in the context of what we already know of. We're just replicating what we see in nature and reality. And we're getting better and better at replicating it. In other words, is it possible that as we get better and better and more efficient at reproducing a simulated reality, that is actually creating a new instance of reality itself? Because the reality that we exist in is nothing more than that same expression, just far more advanced and far more storage and computing power and energy put into it.
Do you mean then, so like I've had this argument with people before because of course, you know, my brand, my whole business is naturally inspired, and people are like, so what is natural, right? Because is there anything that isn't natural, right? Which I can't stand that argument. But anyway, is that essentially like what you're saying here is because we're creating it? You know, we're creating the infrastructure that it's essentially natural. It's from the earth. No. Okay.
No, what I'm saying is that our ambitions to go out there and create simulated realities or virtual constructs or augmented realities is simply working on the same basis of laws and principles that our current universe works and operates on.
Yeah, but they're co-opted.
If we go backwards and just say that we do live in a simulation, the same must be true. And then the same must be true. And then the same must be true.
I see what you're saying.
All the way back to the beginning of the natural universe, which is how it actually works. So the natural universe, as we can imagine, operates as a simulation in our binary construct. It's just so much more advanced. It has so much more energy and storage capacity at its level that is beyond comprehension of us understanding it, but we can develop very rudimentary ones that we can integrate ourselves into. So the question, do we live in a simulation? I don't believe we do, but I wouldn't doubt that if we live in an iteration of the original natural simulation, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of thoughts I had there. So, you know, with the human frequency and the connection of, you know, AI to humans, it's being described like humans are going to be used as nodes in this infrastructure. We're going to be nodes. And that's why I thought it was curious at best that they're introducing this idea to the population at Stanford that, you know, humans have a frequency and that we can be connected. So, you know, that's kind of interesting. The other thing is, did you see that story about EMF and how your cellular energy interacts with EMF in such a unique way that it's like a fingerprint?
You need to send me all these articles you're reading.
Okay. Yeah. So like the way you interact with EMF. So you know how a lot of people have been gaslit for many, many years when they've been told, like when they've said, hey, I think I'm sick because of EMF frequency. Like it gives me headaches. It makes me feel bad. You know, there are people that cannot tolerate EMF. And turns out now new researchers have found out that the way your body interacts with EMF energy is so unique. It's as unique as your fingerprint. And so they're developing a way that they can use this for identity and surveillance.
So I can throw, there's a 2014 study that I've talked about multiple different times. Dr. Martin Blank, Columbia University. I believe he passed away in like 2020, by the way. But in 2014, Dr. Martin Blank, Columbia University, did a study on the damaging effects on cellular radiation, cellular phone radiation on DNA.
Yeah.
And what he discovered from this investigation, from these studies, should have got him the Nobel Prize. But nobody ever heard about it. They buried it. But what he discovered is that, yes, number one, the big concern is, yes, cell phone radiation, 4G, 5G radiation does affect DNA and does damage it on the electromagnetic scale. The reason it damages it because there is resonant frequency utilized within cellular phones that actually interfere with the DNA. Why is that possible? Because he discovered that your DNA is an electromagnetic transducer, that your DNA's primary purpose is to send and receive electromagnetic signals, and that it's also a fractal antenna. So when you cut that DNA in half and you break it down to an RNA strand, it still sends and receives the same signals of that primary transducer. You cut that DNA in half or replicate it, it's fractal in its nature. What he found out when you delve into the research is that each human being has its own electromagnetic signature within their DNA. For instance, the DNA actually receives and sends signals in the microwave bandwidth, so 3 to 300 gigahertz, primarily topping out at about 32 gigahertz, which is interesting because if you know, there's something out there called the cosmic microwave background radiation, the CMBR. They say this is the afterglow of the Big Bang. This is when you turn on your analog TV and you get static. That's the CMBR. That is the cosmic microwave background radiation that you're actually picking up on an antenna. Well, it comes in and it hits our planet in various different gigahertz ranges in the microwave range. Primarily at the surface level, it tops out at about 32 gigahertz. Just exactly at the tuning rate of our DNA. Now, there's another article that came around, and I can't find it anymore, that said, did the CMBR, cosmic microwave background radiation, have something to do with human evolution or the programming of humanity? This is why I say that we're on the scale of evolution, of conscious evolution. But going back into it, your DNA is highly receptive to microwave radiation, and one of the first channels put out on the 5G scale was 32 gigahertz.
This is why Eric Schmidt said in 2012, what he said about not needing the internet, not needing things. And, I think that the whole chip, they're going to chip people. That was a way to just kind of gaslight people. I don't think we're going to need it. No.
They don't need it.
No. But it's a way to gaslight people and to make people feel crazy. And, this is, look over here, you're going to get chipped. Oh, there's a chip in the vaccine, all that stuff. It's like, oh, no, you're not going to need a chip. They understand this. They understand the electromagnetic frequency. And they understand, I think, a whole lot more about human frequency. And that's why I've been on my soapbox, Josh, talking about, elevating our higher faculties, our innate human higher faculties, because I think we are going to need them to navigate this new world. Like, it's not going to be... you're going to get sucked up into the algorithm. I keep telling people, if you're not mindful about, pushing back against it and keeping your higher faculties so you can critically think. I know that sounds crazy, but I really do believe that.
When we start to look at the bigger picture is, what the deep state, what the globalists were doing. I think they were overlords for something else. And I think that they were building an infrastructure that they were told to build. And that infrastructure was one of control, was a digital slave matrix, kind of exactly what we're talking about, was meant to enslave people in this AI prison. But then on the backbone, it's more kind of like the Borg.
Yeah. I was wondering about the pyramids. I'm wondering if you think the pyramids are here for that kind of transmission of signal.
I think that the pyramids were actually remnants of an ancient civilization, us, who utilized this technology correctly and understood this technology very correctly. You want to know what I honestly think that the pyramids are? They're not rectennas like electromagnetic waves, that they actually take in what's called radiant energy, which Nikola Tesla talked about. He said that he discovered a whole new energy that nobody had ever heard of called radiant energy. And this was transmitted through longitudinal waves, or what we call scalar waves, just having one magnitude and not, right? So,
sure. The scalar lasers are big in natural healing.
That's right. And now a guy in the 1940s who was actually Sigmund Freud's lab assistant, and then broke off from Freud when he came up with a compelling theory, moved to New York City. His name was Dr. Wilhelm Reich.
Yep.
He came up with what was known as orgone theory. Now, orgone and radiant energy are the same thing. Now, if everybody remembers Star Wars and you read the books in the 70s, you remember how they talk about vidiglorians? That in order to obtain the Force and use the Force as a Jedi, you have a concentration of vidiglorians in your system. That's Wilhelm Reich's orgone.
Yeah, they put him in jail.
They put him in jail. It was one of the only books in the 20th century taken off the shelves legally by a court order. Now, he built orgone accumulators, and all it is alternations of inorganic and organic matter. Now, interesting enough is you had granite on the outside, inorganic matter, and then you had limestone on the inside, and then granite on the inside. What do you have? You have
boxes.
You have varying layers of, everybody doesn't know this, is that limestone is actually composed of organic matter. So you have granite, limestone, granite. you have varying layers of, you have an orgone accumulator. That's what the pyramids were. They captured radiant energy, and then you could utilize that energy to increase your consciousness or to power a society. This is what they were all talking about.
And here we are. And here we are in 2025. And it's like, from the medical model, Josh, this does not surprise me, because the medical model makes, if somebody discovers something, if there's a new way of doing anything, they will suppress it until they can figure out a way to monetize it. We see it takes 17 years, Josh, 17 years for them to implement a new medical theory. 17 years. Doesn't matter, if there's people in medical school right now and they make a discovery like, oh, this old surgery that we've been doing is actually no longer like efficient. We have a new way of doing it. 17 years before it'll actually make it to the textbooks, until those kids get taught, those students get taught the actual way that they're converting over to. So it's just, they're not going to be able to continue to do that. And I think that's probably part of the struggle with the internet and censorship, especially in the medical field and in the health field, because as you know, health is highly censored still, even today. It's hard to talk about health stuff online, because I feel like they're just trying to keep the lid on this sucker, because everybody's questioning it now. And because we have so much information at our disposal, just right at our fingertips, it's like they can barely keep it together. But I mean, there's all kinds of discoveries going on. Frequency healing, of course, ivermectin, all these different things now that are coming to the forefront, that people are starting to understand that there's not even necessarily new technology, but old technology.
Yes. Did you watch Diary of an AI CEO's latest episode with Simon Mills?
I did not. No, I didn't catch that one.
Simon Mills, known as the herb slinger, he goes on there, and this guy has been treating, he has like 200 patients every month coming into him. He's an herbologist, Chinese medicine, so forth, trained. He went through traditional medical school, and he's basically, he lays out the foundation that you have to understand that Big Pharma came about because they looked at the benefits of these different plants and so forth, and they just extracted them and then monetized them and then said, you can't use
synthesized
these anymore.
It. That's right. That's exactly what they did.
The problem is that there's a synergetic effect when you have the whole plant. That the plant, it's not just one substance in the plant that is doing the things. It's a synergetic effect of the plant, and that the plants actually can work a lot better.
Yes, and that's just a perfect example of what I'm trying to explain. When we hijack nature and synthesize it, the whole body works the same thing. When we try to focus, compartmentalize, and that's where medicine really went wrong, Josh, is when they started, getting specialists, and they detached the whole human body from treatment from a physician. It used to be a general family practitioner. We didn't have specialists. That's when the medical model really changed, because they stopped recognizing the whole body, just like you mentioned here, using the whole plant. Like there's so much mirror in nature, Josh, that we just ignore. And that's a perfect example of it right there. And yeah, traditional Chinese medicine, there was a lot that got thrown out. Oh, that's woo-woo, all because of the discovery of petrochemicals, right? Of being able to synthesize nature and put it in pill form and patent it and sell it back to the people. When you literally can go out in your yard and get some of these medicinals.
I have a garden here, and I let it just... I'm like, you know what? I'm going to let the weeds overgrow the garden because I want to see what comes up, right? And I go out there with my plant identifier, and I'll pick the bad weeds and get rid of them. But I had something growing, and I'm like, oh, I'll come back when it starts to bloom. And it just bloomed, and it's verbena.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I'm like, and I got tons of it. And I'm like, this looks familiar. Like, I know I can use this for something. But it's an herb. And I'm like, oh, my God, this is growing naturally in my yard. And I'm like, this is like I'm going to harvest it.
You can make tea out of it. You could dry it. You could do all kinds of things with it. Yeah. Awesome.
I mean, and it's
dandelion.
It's highly beneficial. You throw it in with dandelion. Exactly. I got tons of mint. I got all different types of stuff growing, but it's like, I just went out there and I got a whole bunch of peppers. I got some sage. I got some some parsley, cilantro, and then I went up there and I just made a whole kind of spicy mix because I had some ghost peppers and then I had some polandos and I had some habaneros. And I made the spice mix and I just mixed it all up. I got some ground beef that I'm cooking up. I'm going to mix that with the ground beef, make some, and then I got lettuce that I picked from the garden. So I'm going to throw the ground beef with the mix into the lettuce, and that's going to be dinner.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I've been eating the last week because they just started coming up. We had a lot of rain here. But once I got my garden back, it's like I can eat healthy again.
Yeah, I mean, it's just this whole idea of synthesizing what is in nature, I think is really what has gotten us into trouble, from food to medicine to now technology and our own bodies. Because we are synergistic beings. We can't just treat one area of the body. You have to treat the entire body. And that's where allopathic medicine really goes wrong. I wanted to invite your audience tonight too, Josh. Yes, I want to invite them to take a quiz, take an assessment rather. Red Pill audience, get your score, your health score at redpillhealthscore.com, redpillhealthscore.com. I've heard from a lot of you, and I love hearing from you, and I love hearing about, your health concerns and whatnot. But a lot of people today, Josh, are scared to go to the doctor, and this scares me a little bit, not because I want you to go to the doctor. I don't, but I want you to take personal responsibility for your health. And I don't want you to, let things go too long before you start changing your lifestyle. So this is just a little assessment that I put together, and so you can see where you're at. And once we see where you're at, then you can start making decisions. Of course, you can always contact me directly, 720.
It's right there.
Yeah, 303-8868. But come and have some fun with this health score, because I think it'll be really revealing for you. You'll start to see where the areas are. So there's certain things that we do in our lifestyle that are stopping us from achieving our optimum health. And they're easy fixes if we can identify them. So if you can identify what you need to fix, you make the changes slowly. You can get support with Naturally Inspired. You don't have to do it all by yourself. But don't just sit there and suffer in silence. Things like heartburn, things like, indigestion, skin issues like psoriasis or eczema. These are all communication coming from your body. This is all communication. And that's very key, because we've been taught in the allopathic model to fear our symptoms, right? Fear symptoms. I take that word away. These are not symptoms. These are signals, and they're communication, but you must respond to them while they're whispering. You got heartburn? That's a whisper. You got indigestion? That's a whisper. You got gut issues, bloating? That's a whisper. Right? But when you start leaving it unattended too long, years on end, the body will start to shout. And when it starts to shout, that's when it can be alarming, right? And you may not have the choices that you have right now to walk back that dis-ease in the body. So that's why I wanted to bring that assessment here today, that score, so that people could really get a look at where they're at in their health. And then, of course, working with Naturally Inspired community, it's so much fun. This last week, we were talking about inflammation. We're talking about our emotions and how our emotions create inflammation in the body. Again, this whole frequency idea, we're electric beings, right? And your emotions have frequency. We've seen that through, Emoto's work. I think everybody probably on your audiences.
I used to play it every night on our live streams. I only stop those because I don't have any movies to switch out. So Jason needs to send me his whole
he's got tons.
And then I can start that back up again.
Yeah. So your emotions have an impact on the crystallization of water, right? The form that water takes when you project your emotions onto it, your words, it changes the molecular structure of the water, like Emoto. Well, it's the same thing in your body. You're mostly water. Right? So we talked about that this last Tuesday night. This is the types of topics that we support with on Tuesdays with the weekly wellness workshop. So don't suffer in silence. Don't just sit and wait because you're afraid to go to the doctor or whatever. Take personal responsibility and act to the whisper, right? Because it is a whisper. Some of these things are whispers, but if we don't tend to them, they become shouts. And when they're shouts, that's more work and more pain. So act now.
In the put context of that, we had Dr. Emoto was back in the 1990s when he originally did a lot of this research. Now, in 2014, this is when the documentary came out. Water memory. I forgot what it's. Structured water. We play the documentary on our channel, but that documentary actually sparked an idea in somebody's mind. And this gentleman, who was a Nobel laureate, very famous doctor out there, went and said, "This can't be true," and started putting Dr. Emoto's science to actual laboratory study.
Yeah.
And Dr. Luc Montagnier, who just died last year.
Yes.
Everybody remembers Dr. Luc Montagnier. He came out against the COVID vaccine, everything like this. He came out in 2014 and did a whole funded research study on it and discovered Dr. Emoto was 100% correct that we have what's known as structured water, that water forms two different types of bonds. You have an ionic bond and you have a hydrostatic bond. The hydrostatic bond being the most important because you have this big oxygen, which is electrically negative, and then you have the protons, which are really, really small, or the hydrogen, which is really, really small but positive. And the hydrogens will actually link to the oxygens. But what happens is the hydrogen molecules, when they're attached to the oxygen, will repel each other. And they repel each other in an angle. And that angle just happens to be the golden angle of 108 degrees. But that is what they call, when they're frozen, they are at 104 degrees. So what happens is when water enters what's called structured water phase, you can measure this by the degree of the angle derivative from that 104 degrees closer to the 108 degrees.
There are patterns, Josh. There's patterns, and we've just been taught to ignore them, or we just don't put any value on the patterns of nature. And these are the cues that what we need to live optimum health in optimum health. That's really, like, there are so many cues in nature. It's just overwhelming to me sometimes. That's why, sometimes I abandon the news, because I'm just like so fascinated with the miracle of biology and what's going on with this, this effort to merge us. It's freaky to me, but at the same time, I'm obsessed with it because it's just so fascinating.
Well, I will tell you, you just mentioned the news. I literally have not watched, other than a few clips that I post on every day, a TV. Like turning on the TV and scrolling the guide and watching channels or TV shows or TNT or any of this stuff, or even the mainstream media. I've probably been over a decade.
Yeah.
I mean, I watch shows, but I only watch shows that interest me and that expand my mind.
Right.
So I'm watching. You ever read any Isaac Asimov?
Mm-mm.
He came out a great series back in, I think it was the 60s, called Foundation.
You always drop a good series for me.
Phenomenal. So it's on Apple right now.
Okay.
Watch it. It is just absolutely phenomenal. It's like 20,000 years in the future. And we've colonized the galaxy.
And it was made when?
Isaac Asimov wrote the book, I think, back in the 60s.
In the 60s. Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
The TV show or the series they just put out on Apple 2 years ago. I think they're on the third season, but it's called Foundation, and it's like 20,000 years in the future. This is 10,000 years after the robot war, the AI wars.
Dude, this is what makes me think, oh my gosh, are these tech bros right? Are we in a simulation? Because today I played a clip from the band Rush and their song Red Barchetta, right? It's it's telling you that we're not going to be able to drive. They put in motor laws, right? And now what's happening? This whole autonomous vehicle thing's totally, it's happening. It's not coming. It's here. It's already happening.
Here.
People are doing it. Within 6 months, autonomous driving is going to be more proficient at driving than humans are. That's where we're at. So that's the kind of little blips in the matrix that make me think, oh my gosh, because how do you get it so right? 1984, how do you get it so right? This book that you just mentioned, how do you get it so right?
Well, we were driving down the road the other day, and I go by this Cybertruck. And we looked, and I had my kids in the back, and the guy who's driving has this Darth Vader visor over his head, and he's got he's got like this jacket on, like a biker's jacket, like not a street biker's jacket. And I'm like, guys, you see that? My kids were all laughing. I'm like, why do you think he's wearing that? And I'm thinking, like, because he doesn't want his identity seen by the left because they're going to damage his cyber tracking. And my son's like, because he's sleeping. I go, oh, shit. He's sleeping. And he doesn't want a cop to drive by him and see that he's sleeping. So he puts the visor down so nobody can tell that he's sleeping.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, shit. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. He's on automated drive and he's sleeping. But like, this is the world we're coming into. That automation. I mean, look, you are less than a year away from Optimus Robot from Tesla being launched. They are going to be everywhere. I was having this discussion earlier. I was at the grocery store, and nothing against the young lady bagging my groceries, but I was walking out and I'm like, I understand why she gets paid minimum wage. Like, I completely get it. I could have bagged those bags 10
times faster.
45 minutes earlier than this woman, okay? Like, it was slow as dog shit. Yeah. And I'm sitting there going, and I look at Sam and I go, she's going to be replaced by AI in less than a year. Like,
that's what I was saying. Like, the customer service experience is so crappy nowadays and has been now for years that we're going to welcome these things, because call a customer service line. It's painful, dude. I mean, but it's been a slow, downgrade of service now for years. And I think it's intentional. They don't train people. They don't teach them how to, be of good customer service. That's not an issue for them. They don't care. It's like, fill a body because this is going out anyway. Salesforce, one of the biggest companies in sales, if not the biggest company, they're already doing AI sales calls. They're already doing them.
To the same point, is big companies, they don't even have customer service anymore.
That's right.
Your YouTube,
try to contact Facebook.
Yeah, your YouTube channel gets suspended.
Good luck. We don't care. Yeah.
Yep. Nobody.
Yeah, because when you have that kind of dominance, you don't have to respond to anybody.
Now think about,
because they got everybody addicted to it. They've got everybody addicted to it. So when you have people addicted to it, like literally addicted to it, right? The dopamine hit. I played a clip on my show the other day of a kid just having a complete and utter meltdown because their iPad got taken away. And it was like hard to watch. It was like an addict. It was like an addict. So you don't, it totally is. And so you don't need customer service when you have that kind of addiction built into your platform. You don't need it. And so, but there's good news, I think, for small businesses, because that's where we can fill the gap. We can provide excellent customer service. We can actually engage with our communities and build real relationships. And I think people are going to be so desperate for that, because it's going to be such an isolating time in AI that you're going to miss human connection. You're going to have your robots, you can do your algorithm, you can do all that stuff, but you are eventually going to miss the human connection. Oh, you just went use no sound. You have no sound. Was that lightning? Oh, he just got hit with a storm. Took out his... Nope. There you go. Yes.
Okay. My camera went dark. Everything just coordinated with a lightning strike.
Oh, gosh.
That's crazy.
Didn't that happen last time?
Yeah, but like,
that's
dude,
weird.
That was like, camera went out, everything started flickering here, and then all of a sudden here.
Whoa.
I'm like, that's just creepy. Because think about everything we're talking about, human network.
Well, I know. If we're all hooked up to the Borg, what happens when that happens? Do we all drop?
Oh God. All right, guys, this is what I want you to do. Go visit Tammy and take that quiz. So, Tammy, what's the web address? We got to play it slowly down here at the bottom. But number one, give Tammy a call. 720-303-8868.
Yes, and then
it's
go
confusing for anybody not from Colorado or for someone from Colorado because you have 720 and 303, which are the
and
same.
those are both
the same codes for Colorado. So I always get them mixed up.
Everybody visit to redpillhealthscore.com, redpillhealthscore.com. It'll give you just, a snapshot in time, of where you're at with your health. And of course, I'm here to help. 720-303-8868. Join the Naturally Inspired community. We love having you guys here.
Awesome. And I appreciate you, Tammy. Guys, I'm going to go to a Q&A. And this is hosted on our Zoom. And you guys can find those links on either Locals, X, if you're on X Premium, Substack, or socialredpill.com. You got to be a subscriber. I think it's like $5 a month. You can join on all of those platforms. You will see the links being posted here in the next few minutes. I will be on over there in about 2 shakes of a lamb's tail right after this is all over. I will see you guys all then. Tammy, we got to do a Q&A. We're already talking about getting that planned out. Maybe next week we can jump you in on that Q&A and we can get a lot of these questions answered for people as well. And you can give some feedback towards the quiz, the survey that people are going to take here. So, Tammy, go ahead.
And I'd love to do a giveaway for your audience too.
Oh, I think
yes.
that.
Yeah.
But they have to show up to the Q&A for the giveaway.
Yes. Good. Yes. You got to show up. You got to be there in person or online in person. Yeah. Yep. That would be awesome. I'd be happy to do that.
And I think that Gabe, I was actually talking to Gabe about that. And I think Gabe will actually give up some GOODBRU for that giveaway as well. So
awesome.
Yeah, so got to mention GOODBRU, guys. GOODBRU.com.
Yes, we love our guys at GOODBRU.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, guys. Much love, respect. God bless. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Take care, everybody else. I'll see you at the Q&A. Take care. Good night. Have a great one. Much love, respect. God bless. Till next.
Good night, everybody.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!